She was standing on the sidewalk at 6:47 in the morning with two black garbage bags at her feet and an eviction notice in her hand. She did not cry. She had read the notice 3 times already, not because she did not understand it, but because some words need to be read more than once before the body accepts that they are real. The bags were folded, not filled. Not yet. She had not packed. She had not given them that. A black SUV moved past her close enough that its exhaust caught in her throat. The windows were tinted. Nobody inside looked out. She watched it go the way you watch weather, without surprise, without bitterness, just the quiet acknowledgement of something that has always been this way. 38 floors above the same street, a man stood at a wall of glass and looked down at the city he had spent 40 years building. He saw Atlanta. He saw the skyline, the hotels, the rooftops below. He did not see the woman standing on the sidewalk with the garbage bags at her feet. Not yet. These are 2 people in the same city on the same morning. One is trying to hold on to everything she owns. The other is standing at a window with seating $40 million in receivables and somehow feeling more empty than he has felt in years. They are not strangers to each other. Not exactly. 7 months ago, in a dark service stairwell at 2:13 in the morning, she knelt beside him and kept his heart beating. She did not know who he was. She went back to work when it was done. He did not know her name, and 8 weeks after that, the company with his name on the letterhead sent her an eviction notice. This is the story of what happens when someone finally looks down, not at the city, not at the numbers, not at the skyline, but at the woman on the sidewalk. Before we go any further, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from and what time it is in your city. Whether it is a quiet morning in Atlanta, a late night in Memphis, or somewhere in between, your presence here means something to us. If this is the kind of story that speaks to what you believe about people, about dignity, about what we owe each other, hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. New stories go up every week. We do not want you to miss what comes next. Now, let us begin. The back door of the Greystone Hotel opened outward, and Imani Tate had learned in her first week to lead with her shoulder and not her hands. The handle had been loose for 6 years. Facilities had been notified. The handle was still loose. She came in at 10 o'clock every night through that door, and every night the air just inside smelled the same. Cigarette smoke from whoever had stepped out before her, cut with a cold clean of industrial floor polish, and something faint and sweet drifting down from the catering kitchen 2 floors above. She never ate before her shift. The smell of other people's food at that hour did things to her she did not have time for. Her section was floors 3 through 6, the east wing. The left front wheel of her cart had a catch that made a small rhythmic clicking against the marble every 4th rotation. She had reported it twice, then stopped. She knew the sound the way you know a neighbor's dog. Present, expected, unremarkable. She was a team leader, 30 minutes before the others in, 30 minutes after the last one out. When Deja, the new hire 3 Mondays in, folded the bathroom towels in a way that left creases visible from the door, Imani stopped and showed her again without making it a correction. Just showed her. The same way her grandmother had shown her things. Knowledge passed between hands, not pointed at from above. Her shoes were non-slip black, standard it shoe. The left had gone thin at the heel, a slight unevenness she could feel traveling up through her ankle by the end of every shift. She had a new pair at home in the box. She was still waiting for these to give out completely. At 11 o'clock, she stepped into the stairwell on the 4th floor and called her mother. The call lasted 14 seconds. How are they? Sleeping. Focus on your work. Okay. It had been more or less the same conversation for 6 years. Those 14 seconds were not about information. They were a marker. Here is where you are. Here is where they are. Everyone is accounted for. She put the phone back in her pocket and went back to work. The break room was in the basement, past the laundry facilities, behind a door, marked staff, only in letters faded to the color of old bone. At 3 in the morning, Imani sat at the corner table with rice and peas she had brought from home. She ate slowly. She did not look at her phone. From her apron pocket, she took a needle already threaded. She always threaded it at home, in the light before the shift, and a small square of matching blue fabric cut from a uniform past saving. The sleeve she wore had gone thin at the left cuff. She turned it back and began to work. The needle moved slowly, in through, back through. The stitches were small and even closer together than most people would bother with. She had learned to sew from her grandmother, Cleo, who had grown up in a house where you did not throw away a thing until it had been used to the end of what it could give. Grandma Cleo used to say, "They don't pay you for your hands, baby. They pay you for what you leave behind when your hands aren't there anymore." Imani had not understood that when she was young. She understood it now, sitting under fluorescent light at 3 in the morning, mending a sleeve that no one above the basement level would ever see. She finished the cuff, held it up. The repair was invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. She put the needle away and ate the last of the rice. At 6:03, she stepped through the back door of the Greystone into the cold October air. She always turned right when she left, toward the bus stop, away from the front entrance with its glass doors and canopy and revolving door that guests used. In 6 years, she had never gone in or out that way. She turned right and walked, and the front of the building existed in her peripheral vision the way many things existed in her life. Present, acknowledged beside the point. The number 3 bus came at 6:17, 22 minutes. She sat in the second row and looked out the window at the in-between version of the city, too late for the night, too early for the day. The lock on apartment 3B had a particular way it needed to be turned. A quarter right, then pressure on the door itself, then the rest of the turn, and Amani did it without thinking, the same way her body did anything it had done 10,000 times. The yellow paper was taped to the door at eye level. She stopped. She had seen the first notice 3 weeks ago. The second came 10 days after that. This was the third, final notice of eviction. 30 days to vacate. The date at the top was October 14th. She read it through. Then she read it again, not because she did not understand it, because some information takes more than one pass before the body decides whether to believe it. She peeled the notice from the door, folded it into thirds, and put it in her pocket with the needle and thread. Inside, she opened the cabinet above the stove. On the bottom shelf, folded flat and placed one on top of the other, were 2 black garbage bags. She had put them there the morning the first notice arrived, 3 weeks ago, when she did not yet know how long this would go on. She had stood in front of that cabinet for a while then, too. She looked at them now. She closed the cabinet. She was not at that point yet. She sat at the kitchen table and opened her laptop. A tab was already open to a page she had bookmarked 8 days ago. Atlanta Legal Aid Society. Free civil legal services for low-income residents. She had read it 4 times without calling, because calling meant saying out loud what she was not ready to say. But tonight, in a bill, because saying someone had decided she no longer belonged in, she picked up her phone and called. The recording said the office opened at 9 o'clock. She left a message. Her name, her case number from the eviction filing, her callback number. Clearly, without rushing, the way Grandma Cleo had taught her to leave a message, as if the person on the other end was already paying attention. Then she pulled the folder from her bag and opened it on the table. 47 pages. Everything she had, organized by date, photographed, timestamped, cross-referenced. She had started building it the morning of the first notice. She did not know then that she would need it. She had built it anyway, because that was how she had been raised. The meeting started at 9 o'clock on the 38th floor of Meridian Tower, and it was still going at 10 past 10 when Roland Tatum stopped listening. Not deliberately. He was sitting at the head of the table the same way he always sat, back straight, hands folded, face pointed at whoever was speaking. He had spent 40 years learning how to look present when he was not. Nobody in the room noticed. That was the thing about being the person at the head of the table. Everyone was too busy performing for you to notice that you had stopped watching the performance. The light in the conference room came in off of the city, clean and gray and indirect, bounced through low October cloud before it reached the floor-to-ceiling windows. Nothing fluorescent, nothing industrial, just the sky, reflected off 41 acres of glass. He was wearing the watch Patricia had given him on their 25th anniversary. White gold, slim face, the kind of watch that did not announce itself. The second hand moved. He had not looked at it in 45 minutes. Someone at the table said, "There are some complaints coming in from the English Avenue portfolio. Tenant concerns, mostly maintenance. We're looking at them now." Roland's chief of staff, a young man named Aaron who had been with the company for 3 years, and who Roland could not have described in any detail at that moment, moved to the next slide before the sentence was finished. Roland nodded. He did not ask what the complaints were. The meeting ended at 10:32. He walked back to his office, poured coffee he would not finish, and stood at the window. 40 stories below, Atlanta moved exactly as it pleased, paying no attention to the person looking down at it. He could see Peachtree from here, the long spine of the city, and off to the northwest, just past the grid, the place where the streets got narrower and the buildings got lower. He could not see it clearly from 40 stories, but he knew it was there. He had grown up there. Vine City, 1978. He was 14 years old, sitting on the front steps of a house on Griffin Street on a Tuesday evening in late September, watching the last light die behind the Atlanta skyline. The towers looked different from down here. Closer together than they were, somehow taller, the way anything you want seems bigger from a distance. He had a notebook on his knee. He was doing what he always did when he could not say what he was feeling, writing down numbers. How tall the buildings might be, how much it would cost to build one, how many people it could hold. Patricia was on the step below him, eating green mango with salt and pepper from a plastic bag their neighbor had given her. She was 13. She had lived 2 houses down his entire life. One day I'm going to have a room that looks down at those buildings, he said. Patricia did not look up from the mango. She pulled a slice free with her fingers. Me too, she said. But I'm going to look down to see what people are doing. Not to forget I used to be down there. He thought about that for a moment. That's the same thing, he said. She looked at him then, with the expression she had even at 13, the one that said she was being kind when she disagreed with you. It's really not, she said. He had thought about that conversation many times over the years, the way most of his thinking happened, alone, quietly, usually when he was standing at a window. The photograph of Patricia on his desk was not from their wedding or any of the evenings at donor tables or charity galas where people with money performed generosity before each other. It was from Grady Memorial Hospital. She was wearing her nursing uniform, standing in the corridor outside the maternity ward, holding a newborn in both arms. The baby was not theirs. She was simply holding it while the mother rested. She had kept the night shift at Grady for 11 years after she could have stopped. He had asked her once why she still went in at 10 o'clock and came home at 7 in the morning. She told him, I stopped doing it for the money a long time ago. I do it because every night there's someone who needs someone to be there. And if I'm not there, maybe nobody is. He had nodded when she said it. He had not understood it. He was not sure he understood it now, 2 years after she was gone. But it lived in him the way things you don't fully understand sometimes live in you. Quietly, close to the surface, coming up without warning in the middle of a morning, when you are supposed to be reviewing projections. He was still at the window when Aaron knocked and came in. The legal team flagged something, Aaron said. A complaint filed with Fulton County Housing Court. 7 households in the English Avenue portfolio filing as a group. Wrongful eviction, falsified maintenance violations. Roland turned from the window. Aaron set a 2-page summary on the desk and stepped back. Roland picked it up. He scanned the property address, the filing date, the names of the 7 tenants. Standard format, the kind of document he had seen hundreds of times. He almost put it down. Then his eye caught a name near the top of the page. The lead plaintiff, the one who had organized the other 6, the one who had filed first, Amani Tate. He stopped. He looked at the name for a moment. Then he looked up at Aaron. Go ahead and leave that, he said. Aaron left. Roland sat down and read the document again, more slowly. He could not have said exactly what had stopped him. He did not know the name. He was certain he did not know it. But something in the way it sat on the page, something he could not name and did not try to, made him set everything else down. He picked up his phone and called David Chen. David answered on the second ring. I need you to pull something for me, Roland said. Security footage from the Greystone Hotel, stairwell B, service side, the night of March 14th, between 2 o'clock and 3 in the morning. A pause. What is this about? David asked. Roland looked at the window, at the city, at the place in the northwest where the streets got narrower and the buildings got lower, where a boy had once sat on a front step writing down numbers and dreaming about rooms he had not yet built. Get it for me first, he said. Then we'll talk. The office of Atlanta Legal Aid Society was on the 2nd floor of a building on Pryor Street, up a staircase that smelled like carpet cleaner and old coffee. The waiting room had 12 chairs. 8 of them were full when Imani arrived at 9:53 on Tuesday morning. Her appointment was at 10. The lawyer's name was Marcus Webb. He was younger than she expected, mid-30s at most, the kind of young that still showed in the way he sat, slightly forward in his chair, as if he had not yet learned to take up space with confidence. He had her folder open on the desk in front of him. He turned pages without speaking for almost 4 minutes. You did this yourself? He said finally. Yes. He looked up at her, then back down at the folder. He turned another page, all 47 pages. He was quiet again. She let him be quiet. She had not come here to be doubted. She had come here because she needed someone who understood what was in the folder, and the folder would speak for itself if he gave it time. Finally, he said, your timeline is clean. Timestamps on the photos predate the maintenance violation notices by 22 days. That's significant. And the lease agreement you signed in 2013 has specific language about required notice periods that the management company did not follow. Under OCGA 44-7-50, she said, the dispossessory statute, proper written notice, correct form. They used neither. Marcus Webb looked at her for a moment. You read the statute, he said. I had time, she said. He almost smiled. This file is strong enough to request a stay, he said. 45 days minimum, possibly 60. That gives us time to challenge the underlying maintenance claims. And if what you're saying about the other 6 tenants is accurate, identical notices within the same 2-week window, that's a pattern. Patterns are harder to dismiss than single complaints. Amani nodded. She had known what the file said. She had needed someone else to confirm it. This usually starts after hours, Marcus said, still scanning the final pages. Late night situations, management moving when they think no one is paying attention. She registered the phrase without reacting to it. Late night, 2 o'clock in the morning. The way memory works sometimes is not like a door opening. It is more like a smell reaching you from a room you have been in before. Before you decide to go there, you are already inside. Stairwell B Greystone Hotel, March 14th, 2:13 in the morning. The service corridor was quiet the way it got quiet after midnight. Guests on their floors, catering crew gone. The last sounds of the gala 2 floors above faded to nothing an hour ago. The air smelled of damp carpet and something expensive and floral, gardenia maybe, the kind of scent people wore to events where they would be standing close to strangers. She was pushing the cart toward the linen closet when she saw him. He was against the wall near the stairwell door, half seated, half fallen, the way a person ends up when the body stops cooperating without warning and there is no time to choose how to land. His jacket was open. His chin was down. Her heart did not speed up. She had worked enough late nights in enough hotels. She had called 911 twice before in 6 years. She was not afraid of it. She knelt down and pressed 2 fingers to the side of his neck. The pulse was there, faint, uneven, the rhythm wrong in a way she recognized from the Red Cross CPR certification the hotel had required she complete 4 years ago. She pressed the call button on her radio. Stairwell B, she said. Get Shanice. Tell her to call 911 and come down now. She set the radio down and positioned her hands, heel of one palm on the center of his chest, fingers laced together, elbows straight, the way the Red Cross instructor had shown them some 4 years ago in a room that smelled like folding chairs. She began. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Count in her head. She did not rush it. She did not think about who he was or what he had been doing on the floor above her while she was cleaning rooms. She thought about the count, about the angle of her wrists, about keeping the rhythm even and consistent, the way consistency was the only thing that worked when everything else was uncertain. His vest was expensive. Under her hands, it was just fabric. A body was a body. A count was a count. After the 3rd cycle, something shifted in the rhythm beneath her hands. She kept going. Grandma Cleo used to say, if you put your hand on someone who is falling, you have to be ready to stand with them, even when no one is watching. She was not thinking about Grandma Cleo, but the words were there the way they always were, under everything, holding it up. When his breathing steadied, she took his hand. It was not in the training, but she had stood at enough bedsides with her grandmother to know that what a person needs when they are half gone is something solid on the other side of wherever they went. I'm right here, she said. I'm not going anywhere, she said it quietly, to the stairwell, to the space between the fluorescent hum and the dark. The paramedics came at 2:19. Then security, then 2 men in dark suits she did not recognize, then Mr. Holt, the hotel manager, coming through the stairwell door already moving. Miss Tate, Mr. Holt said. Thank you. Can you return to your section? She stood up, pressed her palms flat against her uniform pants. She pushed the cart back into the corridor. She finished the remaining 6 rooms by 4 in the morning. She signed out at 6:05. She took the number 3 bus home and looked out the window. She did not tell her mother. She did not tell Shanice. She did not write anything down. It was a night at work. It had simply required more of her than most nights did. That evening, after the children were asleep, Amani sat under the kitchen lamp and mended a pair of small tear at the left knee, the kind that happens when a child falls and keeps running without stopping to notice. The needle moved. In through, back, through. She looked at her hands. They knew how to count chest compressions, how to hold a needle in low light, how to organize 47 pages in exact order, how to hold a stranger's hand in the dark without flinching. Nobody paid her for those things specifically. They paid her for the room she cleaned and the shifts she led. Grandma Cleo had told her that was exactly how it worked. She finished the hem. She bit the thread. She had not decided yet whether that meant it was fine or just true. The email from David arrived at 6:47 in the evening with a video file attached and 1 line of text. Found it. Watch alone. Roland was still in his office. The city outside had gone from gold to gray while he was not paying attention. He had not eaten. His coffee from that morning was still on the corner of the desk. He opened the file. The footage was from a fixed-ceiling camera in the upper corner of the service stairwell. High-angle, wide frame, the kind installed to document liability rather than to see anything clearly. The timestamp reads 02-13-07. The image was low resolution, and the corridor light existed primarily to illuminate an exit sign rather than anything beneath it. He watched. A woman in a blue custodial uniform came from the right side of the frame, pushing a cart. She stopped. She left the cart and crossed to the far wall, where a figure was slumped against the emergency door. She knelt. Roland leaned closer to the screen. She pressed 2 fingers to the side of the figure's neck. She reached for the radio at her hip. Then she positioned her hands and began. He could see the compression count in the movement of her arms. Steady, even. Not frantic, not rushed. The particular rhythm of someone who has learned a thing well enough to do it without thinking about how. 30. 2 breaths. 30. He watched the cycle repeat 3 times. After the third, something changed in the body on the floor. She kept going. Then she stopped. She took the figure's hand. That was the part he could not look away from. She sat on the floor of a service corridor at 2 in the morning and held a stranger's hand and bent her head down, and her mouth was moving, saying something the camera could not pick up. He would never know exactly what she said. He did not need to. He had heard it before, not the words. The thing underneath the words, that quality of presence some people carried into difficult rooms as naturally as others carried tension or fear. He had seen it in Patricia's hands. He had heard it in her voice the night she explained why she was still going in to Grady at 10 o'clock after they had more than enough money for her to stop. She said, "I do it because every night there's someone who needs someone to be there, and if I'm not there, maybe nobody is." He sat back. The figure on the floor was him. He had known that from the moment David named the hotel and the date. What he had not known was the quality of stillness with which the woman sat beside him, as if there were nowhere else she was supposed to be, as if this were not an interruption of her work, but the whole point of it. He called head of legal. "Who signed the eviction orders at 1041 English Avenue," he said. "The property management contractor. Crestview Management. They handle day-to-day operations on several of your residential portfolios." "Send me everything," Roland said. "Every internal communication about that property from the last 18 months. It arrived in 3 emails over the next hour. He read all of it. The pattern was not subtle once you were looking. Within 6 weeks of the portfolio acquisition, Crestview had been issuing maintenance violations at the English Avenue property at a rate 4 times higher than any comparable building. The violations were specific enough to sound credible and vague enough that they could not be easily disproved. Every long-term tenant had received at least 2 notices. 7 had received eviction filings. Nobody at the corporate level had asked why. Nobody had looked, Roland included. Fulton County Housing Court granted the day 11 days, 45 days, based on procedural deficiencies in Crestview's filings and Amani's documentation, which the judge reviewed for longer than either side had expected. She walked out of that courtroom with her folder under her arm and 45 days of something that was not safety, but was close enough to breathe around. She called her mother from the sidewalk. 12 seconds. It held, Amani said. "Good," her mother said. "Come home and sleep." 8 days after that, Crestview's attorneys filed an appeal. The grounds were technical, a formatting error in the joint complaint that the judge had initially overlooked and that the appellate court did not. 3 lines out of 47 pages. 3 lines, and it was enough. The appeal was granted on a Thursday at 11 o'clock in the morning. Amani walked out of the courthouse at 11:47 and sat down on the concrete steps outside. The folder was on her lap. The November air was cold enough that her breath showed, and she watched it disappear, small and white and gone. She did not cry. She did not call anyone. She looked out at the parking lot the way you look at something when you are deciding what it means and have not decided yet. She thought about the cabinet above the stove, the 2 bags folded flat on the bottom shelf. She was not there yet. She was not going to let herself be there. But she could feel the distance between here and there getting smaller in a way it had not before, and that was its own kind of news. 2 rows of parked cars away, Roland came out of the courthouse from a side entrance. He had been in a separate hearing, a zoning matter on a different portfolio, and Aaron was 3 steps ahead of him, already on his phone. Roland looked to his right out of habit, the way he always scanned a new space. He saw a woman in a navy blazer sitting on the courthouse steps. Her back was straight. A folder rested across her knees. She was looking out at the parking lot in the particular way that people look when they are not seeing what is in front of them, because what they are seeing is somewhere else entirely. He knew that look. He had worn it himself on a front porch in Vine City in 1978, after his father was told the house had to be vacated in 2 weeks. The same stillness that was not calm but had learned to look like it. The same gaze that had somewhere specific to be and nowhere left to go. Roland stopped walking. Aaron continued 3 steps before he noticed. "Roland," Aaron said. "The car is..." He stopped. He had learned in 3 years when not to finish a sentence. The woman on the steps had not looked up. She did not know anyone was watching. She was still looking at the lot, at whatever was in the middle distance that only she could see. Roland turned to Aaron. "The woman sitting on those steps," he said. "What is her name?" That same evening, Roland sat at the desk in his home study and did not open his laptop. He took a sheet of plain white paper from the center drawer, the kind that had no letterhead, no watermark, nothing that declared where it had come from or who he was. He took a pen from the cup on the right side of the desk, blue ink. He had not written anything by hand in long enough that the first two attempts looked wrong to him, the letters too careful, too deliberate, the handwriting of someone performing handwriting rather than using it. He crossed them out and started again. He wrote for 40 minutes, one page. He wrote that he knew what she had done on the night of March 14th. He wrote that he had watched the security footage more than once. Not once, more than once, because a person who does something like that in a dark stairwell for a stranger and then goes back to work deserves to have someone sit with what they did for longer than it took to do it. He wrote that the eviction notice his company had sent to her door was wrong, and that wrong was a word he meant without qualification, not as a legal position but as a plain fact. He wrote that he was sorry, not in the language his attorneys would have used, just sorry, the way one person is sorry to another. He signed it with his first name only, no title, no company. He sealed it and called David. Send it to her attorney, he said. Marcus Webb, Atlanta Legal Aid. He'll know how to get it to her. Amani read the letter at her kitchen table 2 days later, after her shift, before the children woke up. She read it through quickly the first time the way she read anything new, looking for what it was actually saying, beneath what it appeared to be saying. Then she read it again, slowly. She folded it and set it on the table and looked at it. She had met too many things in her life that looked like one thing and turned out to be another. A paper was a paper until the person behind it did something. She knew that the way she knew which brake pads were worn, and which bills could wait another week, and which silences from her children meant tired, and which meant something else. She had been reading the gap between what things appeared to be and what they were for 32 years. She put the letter in her wallet, between her transit card and a photograph of her grandmother. She went to bed. She went to work the next morning. Roland terminated Crestview Management's contract the following Monday. He withdrew all 7 eviction orders at 1041 English Avenue and filed the withdrawal of the appellate motion himself, in person, at Fulton County Housing Court, without sending Aaron. He authorized 3 months of rent credits for each affected household and a written commitment to freeze rental rates at the property for 36 months. The board met on Wednesday. This sets a precedent, said the member who always said what everyone else was thinking. 200 households across your other portfolios could bring the same claim. Then we'll be right with all 200, Roland said. No one spoke for a moment. Roland, said the board chair, you understand what that exposure looks like. I understand what the alternative looks like. Roland said, we're done here. His phone rang Thursday evening, a number he recognized but had not called in 14 months. He answered before the second ring. I heard what you did, Jalen said, not as an opening. Just as a fact, the way his son had always stated things, directly without preamble, leaving room for the response to determine what came next. Roland said, I know you told me about Crestview. I did. I didn't listen. No. There was a silence that was not uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who have too much to say and have learned separately that the first conversation after a long gap is rarely the one where most of it gets said. You want to meet? Jalen asked. Yes, Roland said. This weekend, if you can. I can. That was all. But a door that had been closed for 14 months was now open, and neither of them mentioned it because some things are better acknowledged by walking through than by standing outside pointing at the frame. 3 days later, Roland arrived at the offices of Atlanta Legal Aid Society 12 minutes early. He sat in one of the plastic chairs in the waiting area, the same kind of chair from the same kind of waiting room that he had sat in many times in a different life, in government offices and social services buildings, and places where people went when they needed something and had nowhere else to go. The chair was uncomfortable in the particular way that institutional chairs were always uncomfortable, as if designed to remind you that your time here was not meant to be pleasant. He waited. Amani came in at 9:02. She saw him before he stood. He could tell by the way her steps slowed, not hesitation, just the adjustment of a person recalculating a space. She looked at him the way she had looked at the letter, directly, without flinching, without whatever expression most people wore when they expected to be impressed by something. He stood. He did not extend his hand, he waited. She crossed the room and sat in the chair beside him rather than across from him. The arrangement of it seemed deliberate, side by side, not opposed. Marcus Webb appeared in the doorway of his office. I'd like to speak with her without attorneys present, Roland said, if that's all right with you. Webb looked at Amani. She nodded once. Webb went back inside and closed the door. Roland told her what he knew. He did not arrange it well. He had not planned it, and it showed. The sentences were not in the right order, and he repeated himself once, and he stopped twice in ways that left the air in the room doing more work than words could. But it was true, all of it, and she would know the difference. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. I didn't do it for you, she said. I didn't know who you were. I know that. Then why are you? He looked at her. Because the person who does that without knowing who they're doing it for, he said, is exactly the person who deserves to have someone find out. Imani looked at him for a long time. She was doing what she did with everything. The statute, the letter, the folder, the gap between what a thing appeared to be and what it was. She was reading him. She did not say anything yet, but she did not look away. 9 months later, Imani was still in apartment 3B. The roof had been repaired in February. A leak she had been reporting for 4 years, fixed in February, because the property management company that had handled maintenance was no longer handling maintenance. The kitchen had a second chair at the table now. Her oldest child had turned 6 in March and was big enough to sit at a proper height. Small things. The kind you only noticed when you had been paying attention to their absence for a long time. She still worked the Greystone Hotel, 3 nights a week instead of 5. The left front wheel of her cart still clicked against the marble on every 4th rotation. She had submitted the maintenance request again and did not expect anything different. The other 2 days she drove to a building on Whitehall Street, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, and ran the administrative office of the Stay Ready Initiative, a free legal and financial counseling program for low-income renters in Fulton and DeKalb counties, funded by a grant from the Tatum Meridian Community Foundation and operated entirely by Imani. She had said no twice. Roland had asked a 3rd time. Before she said yes, she spent 11 days reviewing the program charter, the funding terms, and the governance structure. She requested 4 changes to the board composition, the independence clause, the conflict of interest process, and a single sentence in the mission statement she felt was not accurate. Roland made all 4 without negotiation. She said yes on the 12th day. Roland had changed in ways too small for most people who dealt with him professionally to notice. He left the office before 7 most evenings. Aaron had been told not to schedule anything after 6 unless it was genuinely necessary, and Aaron had learned what genuinely meant. He had dinner with Jalen on Fridays at a restaurant in Inman Park that Jalen had chosen and that Roland had never been to before. They did not resolve things at those dinners. They talked about other things and let the unresolved ones exist between them, which was more progress than 14 months of silence. He went to Grady Memorial Hospital in April. No announcement, no photographer, nothing with his name on it. He funded a new consultation room for the night shift maternity ward, equipped and operational within 90 days. A small card on the wall inside read, "In memory of Patricia Tatum, who believed that someone should always be there." That was all. The launch event for Stay Ready was held on a Saturday morning in July at Greater Vine City Baptist Church, 4 blocks from the house on Griffin Street where Roland had grown up. 200 people came. The room smelled of coffee from a large urn near the entrance, and of cornbread someone had brought in a foil pan that was passed along the rows of wooden chairs until it was gone. Plastic tables held information packets, and volunteers from Atlanta Legal Aid and the Tenant Advocacy Coalition of Georgia staffed the room through noon. Imani spoke for 14 minutes without notes and without looking at anything except the people in the chairs. She did not use the language of programs or initiatives. She talked about what it felt like to read a legal notice 3 times, because your body would not believe it the first 2. She talked about what a 47-page folder meant to someone who had never been able to build one before. She talked about what it was worth to have someone look at the gap between what a thing appeared to be and what it actually was, and say out loud what they saw. Roland sat in the 3rd row from the back. Nobody introduced him. He did not stand. He listened. The parking lot of the church was full at 12:47 in the afternoon when Roland found Imani loading boxes into the back of her car. The July sun pressed down rather than simply shined, and the asphalt held the heat the way Atlanta asphalt always did, radiating it back upward in slow, invisible waves. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a single printed photograph, a still frame from the Greystone security footage. Her hands on his chest, her face turned slightly upward in the dim corridor light, her mouth in the middle of a word the camera had never caught. Imani held it and looked at it for a long time. "You kept me here," Roland said, "while my company was pushing you out." She was still looking at the photograph. "You are not your company," she said. She said it the way she said the things she meant. Not to console someone, but because it was what she believed. The same thing she believed about herself, that a person was not their worst circumstance. That the gap between what something appeared to be and what it actually was ran in every direction, and sometimes the most important gap was the one between who a person had become and that. Grandma Cleo used to say, "Good people never know how good they are. Only the people they help know that." Roland nodded once. He did not say anything more. He walked to his car. She watched him go. Then she turned to her own car, opened the trunk, and took out 2 black garbage bags, folded flat, that she had brought from home that morning. She was not sure why she had brought them. She had not planned it. She had picked them up on her way out the door and carried them to the car without deciding to. She looked at them. She unfolded the first one and put in it the things that had accumulated in the trunk over the past week. A cardboard milk carton, 3 plastic grocery bags, a lid with no container, a paper bag from a lunch she had eaten in the car on a Tuesday. Then she filled the second with what was left. She carried both bags to the bin at the edge of the parking lot and set them down inside. Not because everything was fine, not because there was nothing left to be afraid of, but because she did not need to leave room in her life for that particular fear anymore. The bags were for trash. That was what they were for. That was all they had ever been for. She got in her car. She started the engine. She drove toward English Avenue, where the kitchen light would already be on, where her mother would be sitting at the table with tea, where 2 small people would hear the engine in the driveway and come running before she reached the door. This story is fiction. Amani Tate, Roland Tatum, the Greystone Hotel, and the Stay Ready Initiative do not exist, but the conditions that shape them do. According to the Eviction Lab at Princeton University, more than 3.6 million eviction filings are submitted in the United States every single year. Atlanta consistently ranks among the highest eviction cities in the country, not because its residents fall behind more than others, but because the legal and financial machinery of displacement moves faster than most people can respond to it. A formatting error in a joint complaint, 3 lines out of 47 pages. That is often all it takes. At the same time, the American Red Cross offers loss certification courses in every major American city, many of them free or low cost, most available on evenings and weekends to people who work during the day. The knowledge Amani used in a service corridor at 2:13 in the morning is knowledge that anyone reading this can carry out of a 2-hour class. It does not require money or connections or a particular kind of life. It requires only the decision to go. That decision belongs to anyone. Imani is not an exception. She is the rule. The rule that quiet competence and stubborn dignity exist everywhere, in night shifts and back stairwells and basement break rooms, doing things that never appear in any ledger. The exception is that someone looked. Before we go, we want to hear from you. What is the quietest act of kindness someone ever showed you? The one that cost them nothing and gave you something you still carry? Drop it in the comments. Tell us where you are watching from. We read everything. If this story landed somewhere real for you, share it with one person today, not tomorrow, today. And if this channel is where you come when you need to be reminded of what people are capable of, please subscribe and turn on notifications. New stories go up every week. We do not want you to miss what comes next. There is a woman somewhere in this country right now who did something extraordinary tonight and went back to work. There is a folder on a kitchen table that someone built alone, in the hours between shifts, because they could not afford not to. There is a cabinet with 2 folded garbage bags in it that nobody has opened yet, because today was not that day, and the fact that it was not that day is its own kind of victory, even if nobody gave her a trophy for it. We make these stories because those people deserve to be seen, not after they have been rescued, not after someone powerful has decided they matter, but now, exactly as they are, doing exactly what they do. And because the person watching this, wherever you are, in whatever hour you are in, you deserve to be reminded that what you do in the quiet, when no one is watching, is the most important thing about you. Stay kind, stay blessed, and never underestimate the power of one quiet act of love.